From his claims of being a better fighter than Volkanovski to saying that the Great was underselling their rivalry, Max Holloway is finally opening up about the one-sided Alexander Volkanovski Trilogy fight. Now, everyone knows Holloway and Volkanovski are well-acquainted foes. The first fight between the two was an absolute shocker. As the reigning champion, Holloway was widely expected to cruise to victory, but Volkanovski had other plans. From the outset, it was clear how serious Volkanovski was about winning. He took Holloway down with ease and controlled him on the ground, preventing him from using his striking skills. The champion was left looking dazed and confused, unable to mount any meaningful offense. What was most surprising, however, was how easily Volkanovski was able to land significant strikes on Holloway. Blow after blow landed on Holloway's face and body, causing visible damage. It was like watching a masterclass in striking, with Volkanovski seemingly able to hit his opponent at will. In the end, Volkanovski won the fight via unanimous decision, with all three judges scoring the bout 48-47 in his favor. The result was a massive upset, leaving the MMA world in shock. As a fan, it was hard not to feel the excitement and adrenaline rush of the fight. The shock of Holloway's loss and the dominance of Volkanovski made for an unforgettable spectacle. It was a reminder that in MMA, anything can happen, and that the underdog can always rise to the occasion. The rematch between Holloway and Volkanovski that followed was also a nail-biter that left fans on the edge of their seats. Despite Holloway's devastating loss in their first fight, he came back stronger and more focused than ever before, determined to reclaim his title. The fight was a back-and-forth affair, with both fighters exchanging blows and landing significant strikes throughout the 5 rounds. Holloway looked like he was well on his way to victory, as he peppered Volkanovski with punches and kicks in the early rounds. But Volkanovski refused to back down, and he was able to turn the tide in the later rounds by utilizing his grappling and wrestling skills. He was able to take Holloway down and control him on the ground, earning him valuable points on the scorecards. When the judge's decision was announced, it was a shocking split decision victory for Volkanovski, leaving many fans scratching their heads in disbelief. How could the judges have scored the fight in favor of Volkanovski when Holloway had clearly won the early rounds? The controversial decision left a bitter taste in many fans' mouths, but both fighters showed tremendous respect and sportsmanship toward each other after the fight. Holloway, despite being disappointed with the outcome, refused to make excuses and instead praised Volkanovski for his performance. The rematch between Holloway and Volkanovski was a thrilling and intense battle that showcased the skills of two of the best featherweights in the world. The shocking and controversial decision only added fuel to the fire for a potential third fight between the two rivals. Some in the sport still viewed Holloway to be the legitimate featherweight champion following the rematch, but after UFC 276, that sentiment was long gone. Alexander Volkanovski absolutely dominated Max Holloway in their third fight. Even though Holloway is known as a beast, Volkanovski proved he was on another level. Volkanovski revealed in the post-fight interview that he had broken his hand in the second round, but that didn't stop him from unleashing a flurry of strikes on Holloway. It was a completely one-sided fight, with both fighters keeping the action entirely on their feet. Holloway, who's known for his forward-moving style, just couldn't seem to get anything going against the defensively sound Volkanovski. It was surprising to see such a dominant performance, especially since the build-up to the fight had been so intense. And after the fight, Volkanovski said that he needed to remind himself that he was indeed the best, and he certainly did that with this performance. I'm pretty sure this fight will go down in history as one of the most lopsided battles in the featherweight division. Alexander Volkanovski punished Max Holloway throughout the bout. He even caused a large gash on Holloway's left brow in the second round, and wounded his nose with shots in the fourth. It was a brutal beating, and the difference in total strikes landed was clear, with Volkanovski coming out on top with 204 to Holloway's 161. Volkanovski's defense was simply superb, and he repeatedly landed heavy counter right hands whenever Holloway tried to make an attack. Despite Holloway's aggressive style, Volkanovski always seemed to have an answer. In the end, it was Holloway who sought the takedown, unsuccessfully in the final round, with his face a bloody mess. Volkanovski, in Australian, has risen as one of the world's finest pound-for-pound fighters since stealing Holloway's championship in their first battle. It's clear that Volkanovski is at the top of his game, and he's proving to be a formidable opponent for anyone who steps into the octagon with him. But ever since his last loss to Makhachev, Volkanovski has been trying his luck at 155 pounds. At UFC 284, Alexander Volkanovski suffered his first defeat in the UFC, losing via unanimous decision to UFC lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. It was a tough blow for the great, as he aimed to become the 5th UFC fighter ever to be a 2-division champion. Despite the seemingly impossible task, the fight between Volkanovski and Makhachev was an epic tussle that had the crowd at the RAC Arena whipped up into a frenzy. However, in the end, it wasn't enough for Volkanovski to elevate himself from great to greatest. But in his post-fight press conference, there was a sense that the war had just begun for the Aussie fighter. Although he wasn't able to capture the lightweight strap he so desperately wanted, he remained determined and focused on his goals. It's clear that Volkanovski is still a force to be reckoned with in the UFC, and that he will continue to strive toward greatness. The energy inside the arena was electric as Alexander Volkanovski squared off against Islam Makhachev at UFC 284. The crowd erupted as Volkanovski landed a powerful hook, sending Makhachev stumbling backwards in the first round. Throughout the 25-minute fight, every move was met with thunderous applause and a deafening stomping of feet. However, despite the unwavering support of the home crowd, Volkanovski struggled to defend against Makhachev's jabs, which slipped through his defense time and again. Makhachev, confident and determined, repeatedly reminded Volkanovski that the crowd wouldn't be able to help him, drawing parallels to Randy Brown's same assertion against Jack Della Maddalena. Although Volkanovski maintained his composure, a blunt left hand from Makhachev caused him to backpedal and repeatedly mouth the words, "I'm alright," as he tried to fend off his opponent's aggressive onslaught of punches and head kicks. The highly anticipated showdown between two of UFC's best fighters at UFC 284 had fans on the edge of their seats. Despite Volkanovski's valiant efforts, it was Makhachev who emerged victorious with a unanimous decision win, taking the fight 48-47, 49-46, and 48-47 on the judges' scorecards. In a recent interview with the MMA Hour, Volkanovski appeared confident and determined, vowing to take down Makhachev if he ever steps into his weight division. Despite the loss, the featherweight champ seems unfazed and ready to take on all comers in his quest for UFC greatness. As for former UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway, he recently got candid about his third loss to Alexander Volkanovski. Max Holloway hasn't competed since his trilogy fight against Alexander Volkanovski, but he will soon make his return to the octagon at UFC on ESPN 44. He is set to face Arnold Allen in what is expected to be a highly anticipated bout. In a recent interview with ESPN MMA, Holloway reflected on his previous fight with Volkanovski and acknowledged that Volkanovski was simply the better fighter that night. Despite this, he refused to make excuses for his performance and admitted that he believed he could have won. If Holloway manages to defeat Allen, there's a possibility that a fourth fight with Volkanovski could happen in the future. Holloway even hinted that he wouldn't rule out the possibility of facing the great once again, and he would undoubtedly seek a similar outcome to Israel Adesanya's first victory over longtime nemesis Alex Pereira at UFC 287. Well, folks, that was all about Max Holloway's one-sided Alexander Volkanovski trilogy fight.